So in our last video, we looked at creating the contour and cross contour lines on a cylinder. Now we're going to go a little step further in difficulty, and we're going to work with a cone. So I consider a cone a little bit more difficult than the cylinder because you only have one flat side. That's usually the side that's going to be resting on the table. And unlike the cylinder, instead of perfectly vertical sides, you now have sides that slant in a diagonal and come to a point. Similar to the cylinder, though, is that you still have the roundness that wraps around the object, but that roundness is going to get smaller as you come to that point. So we're going to work with the cone, and again, if you have room on your previous sketchbook page, you may use it. I'm going to go to a new page, and let's again look at that cylinder, at that cone. So as I just mentioned, the sides slant into a point. They are no longer perfectly vertical. We have one flat side, most likely it is touching the ground, and just like the cylinder, we see the roundness here. So when it comes to drawing the contour outline of the cone, and again, look to the reference photo I have uploaded to your assignment, I just start my cone with a triangle top. And you want one with an acute angle at the top. So I start with the beginnings of a triangle, but instead of finishing it off with a straight line like we would with a triangle, we need to round that bottom, just like we did with the cylinder. And again, this is something that you want to maybe curve down a little bit more than what you think. And it's a balancing act. If you curve it too much, it's not going to look right. If you don't curve it enough, it's not going to look right. Okay? And this is just, again, something you had to practice and start judging for yourself as to whether or not you like the look of it. So I'm going to sketch it out, get something I like. I think I want to come up a little bit higher on those corners. And once I have a form I like for the contour outline of my cone, I'm going to slightly darken it. So as we discussed with cross contour, showing the surface movement inside of this outline, instead of verticals, my lines are going to come more to a point. So if you can see there with the tape, wider space at the bottom comes to a point as it goes up. So I'm going to start there. So I'm going to start at my point, and I'm going to come just maybe slightly off center. And as I add other contour lines, I'm going to start at the point again and let those lines widen out as I reach the bottom of the cone. And I'm going to do that on both sides of that first line I drew. I just like to put the first line near the center. I think it's just easier to help place the other ones afterwards. So the lines are straight but diagonal, and that helps give the idea that if I run my finger from top to bottom, it's going in a straight movement, but it is also moving inwards at the same time. Wrapping around it, just like I did with the cylinder, I'm going to again make those curved lines, but I'm going to make them, they're going to be longer at the bottom. And again, sketch them out, make sure they curve, and work my way up the cone. And of course, as I get closer to the top of the cone, those lines are going to get shorter in distance. And this just helps illustrate the movement that my finger feels of the cone if I start in one point and wrap all the way around. And I do that all the way to the top. So now that I have these contour line movements, I think I need to bring my bottom with a little bit more roundness or a drop down at the very bottom middle of the cone. And I like that better. So see, sometimes you might have to change that contour outline as you fill in those cross contour lines in the middle of the object. So that is the cone. One of the shortest ones, but it's important to realize that instead of those straight verticals, you're going to come to a point at the top to illustrate the movement of, yes, it's flat, one of my fingers going this way, but it's also tilting in. It helps identify the form of it and the roundness of it going in this direction. So we just have one more form to talk about. That will be in the next video.